What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, your host, back with another episode, food photography content related episode, I guess we could call it today. If you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, you can see that there's a camera on the table. It's not Brandon's, it's mine. Kennon just waved. Say hi, Kennon.
Hi.
The man sat between us is Mr. Brandon Smith, known as Dwelling Table on Instagram and all social media, and that's his brand, and takes amazing photos of food. And I tried to do this the other day and realized how good you are at it, because it's
Thank you.
really, really hard.
Thank you.
For someone who's trying to get into photography, and Kennon, obviously you've been doing photography for quite a while now and shooting some architectural stuff.
Yep.
I think this is going to be a fun conversation, just we can talk cameras, we can talk whatever you guys want to talk about, local food scene a bit, stuff like that. But I love the way that you take photos. I know we've had a conversation previously saying, I think, how do you do it? And you're like, well, it just kind of comes naturally. And that's kind of things that I have when people say that to me about the podcast. Like, well, what do you do? Like, well, just have a conversation. And I know Kennon's probably said the same thing for his real estate photography. But I guess we'll start with, how'd you get into it?
That's a great question. I every time I explain this, it's never really quite as linear as I wish I could explain it. I have a background in marketing, and through the marketing work that I did, that's where I initially got a feel for a camera. But I always try to credit food photography and like the whole interest in getting into it from blogs. So think like circa 2010 and 2012, the time where Instagram hadn't killed blogs yet, and you would go to somebody's blog and it would just be like this beautiful thing with it would be like the equivalent of like meeting somebody,
Right.
or as close as you could get to meeting somebody, with like beautiful type, beautiful images, this great design. And a lot of times I feel like whenever I'm thinking about food, it's not always the food that really gets me when it comes to photography. I really like photographing beautiful things, and I think that's kind of like my entry to food is like, I like photographing food, but what I really like is the more editorial style of photography that comes with food.
Okay. So it's not necessarily like, I absolutely love food, I'm going to take pictures around it to still be in the food scene.
Yeah.
Which most people probably think you do love food.
I do love food. So I do love food. I love cooking. I do love a lot of food things, but
not to the level of like, I'm going to write food blogs and I'm going to taste all this stuff.
Well, okay, so here's the funny thing. So whenever I started Dwelling Table, it actually started as a food blog. And I think, I could go on and on about having like a love-hate relationship with Instagram, but kind of the story about getting into food photography has been like one of visibility. So like, whenever I first started, the only thing I really thought you could do with food photography would be to blog, really.
Right.
And so Dwelling Table started as a blog, and I blogged in my tiny little studio apartment. And I actually every now and then go back and I read my old blogs, and they're awful. I mean, they just sound, I cringe. They sound so bloggy.
Isn't all your everybody's old work is always like, oh, how am I here?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's like very cringy and very bloggy sounding. And anyway, so I did that for a little while, and then was able to like kind of start getting my feet wet with commercial food photography and booking gigs, shooting in restaurants.
What was like your first paid gig?
My first paid food gig was Orange Leaf.
Okay.
Yeah, Orange Leaf. We did a little shoot in my apartment at one point, and then I was later hired to do some food styling for them on a set. But
is that like what is Orange Leaf?
Orange Leaf? It's like a frozen yogurt
That's right.
company.
I think they're in that new, or at least they're going to be in like that new, the what's it called?
It's like where EOT is. Yeah.
Oh, they're upstairs, dude. They're like headquarters upstairs. Right?
Okay, I guess that's their head. Okay, because I've seen their logo and stuff, but I didn't know if like they actually.
Yeah, it's something like that. But the job that really has made like a huge difference as far as like setting kind of a trajectory for the path that I'm on now was working with Edible OKC. They had reached out and I started shooting for them, and honestly the first shoot I did for them was in a barbecue restaurant called Leo's.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know if you've been to Leo's, but it's kind of hailed as being like some very, very good Oklahoma City barbecue. And it's a cave. And like I'm like a newbie photographer. Like I had purchased, my fancy camera, like maybe a year before, and I was shooting with the only lens that I had at the time, a 35 millimeter Sigma art lens, which I think like everybody has. Anyway, yes, and so like technically speaking, I wasn't using any kind of flash. The natural light in it was like very, very dim. My ISO was cranked up so high to be able to get this photo, and I had wanted to shoot for Edible so bad, and so I finally got this gig, and I'm like, this is gonna be it. Like I'm gonna hand over these photos, and they're gonna like say, sorry, we can't use these, or like, it was nice knowing you. And I ended up landing the cover with an image of, I can't remember his name, but he was the I don't think he was the owner. I think he was like the pitmaster. Yeah, thank you, the pitmaster. And he was like, and I think I kind of owe that win to him because he was such a ham while I was there, and he was like flipping his knife and like doing all this crazy stuff with the ribs and
real character.
Yeah, someone was telling me later that they were there and he was doing that. He ended up cutting his hand really bad.
Oh.
Yeah. But actually, I think he made the pick.
Yeah. So when was that?
I see you've scrolled down all the way to my old blog content.
Yeah, I'm looking down your Instagram feed. You don't post a lot of pictures, do you?
No,
Because it takes me long to get like way to the bottom. But
here's
is
the deal.
Just like a photography thing?
I'm a dad of 2 under 2, and like on one hand, I do think that I need to be more diligent about posting my work to Instagram, but on the other hand, one thing that I would want to mention is that the success of my business hasn't relied solely on the popularity of my Instagram.
Yeah.
A lot of the work that I've been able to get has been through referrals and also my website.
Good.
But Instagram certainly helps. It's not like
Do you think that possibly it could? Like you could get more business from it if you put some.
I think I could, but I think that I could. I do just want to push back a little bit on like Instagram being everything, and like you have to have thousands and thousands of followers to, become a successful photographer, and that's really not the case. And in fact, if you go and you look at a lot of commercial photographers who are shooting really high-end editorial work, Instagram is not like their bread and butter.
Yeah.
They're definitely posting, but they're not really on. I shouldn't make it like a blanket statement, but it's not like everybody in the photography world is chasing fame on Instagram.
Yeah, I mean, because I've even personally gotten gigs off of it, like via Instagram. They saw my stuff and like, hey, let's do something. But I think that, I mean, even there's some photographers that I'm like, you are top shelf, and then you look and they have like 3,000 followers.
Yeah.
So like, I really don't think that followers really translate to.
No, you're right.
Because like there are people out there with millions of followers that are like, who are you, dude?
Yeah, can't really take photos.
Not even photographers, just like personalities.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what's going on here? So I don't really think that numbers translate directly to that, but I think Instagram is just like a tool,
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think that, like you said, and I've seen this in kind of, I follow a lot of car photographers, and like my favorite car photographer of all time, like has these amazing shoots, and like no one really knows who he is on Instagram.
Yeah.
But like he has like all this awesome stuff, and you're right, it's a tool, and it's like a marketing tool. If you have time to use it, great. If you don't, but you can't like solely rely on it.
Sure, and I agree. It's a tool just as much as like, being like a good steward of like your own personal network of IRL relationships. You know what I mean? Which can be like just as profitable.
So those referrals.
And that's what like Oklahoma is, though, isn't it? Like everyone knows everyone, right? So especially in like the restaurant industry here.
Yeah.
It's a lot smaller it is growing, but it's a lot smaller, and then you just kind of get. I think you become that guy that everyone just think, oh, who takes photos of food? Okay, it's Brandon.
Is that
Right.
good or is that bad though?
I mean, for you, it's a great thing.
Yeah.
I think so.
I think it depends on maybe your perspective. I
You
guess.
think?
I don't know.
Well, I mean,
I think-
I would assume that would be the goal, to be like the go-to guy in town.
Yeah, I definitely don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah.
I love the local scene as far as, restaurants go. I think we've got some really great food here in Oklahoma City, and there are a lot of great restaurants that I would love to shoot at. But what were you gonna say, Kennon?
I don't know. I think I just always try to play devil's advocate and see both sides of things. Like I could see where maybe being the dude would be bad, but I don't know. I was just trying to think of how I'd explain that, but maybe there isn't a downside to it. Being that you should be the dude.
Well, I mean,
I'll cheer you
you're
on.
kind of like, I would say you're equally the dude for real estate.
I mean,
Kennon, I think here's the deal.
Hates this,
Kennon.
doesn't he?
Well, here's the thing that Kennon would say. Kennon would be like, well, actually, no, it's not real estate photography. It's architectural photography,
Yeah.
and there's a distinct difference.
There is.
So I think that probably there's this part of Kennon right now that wants to be like, well, actually, I need to correct you there.
Do it.
I'll hold my tongue. No, I mean, thank you for that. I do think that I've gotten to a place where I am, I guess, known for what I do, so maybe,
Mhm.
I don't know, you caught me off guard there, thanks.
Yeah, hates compliments. He absolutely hates compliments. No, but I think like you both have that like similar, that to relate to is like you're both kind of in your fields. You're both like that go-to guy or the go-to couple of people, right? Which is
I didn't think you were going to say people there.
the
Go-to couple.
go-to couple for those things. No, but I agree. I personally think that anyway. But Brandon, what did it make you like? Was it a shock that you got the cover that first time?
Oh yeah, I cried, bro. Yeah, I was like, well, and I think too is like, so for anybody who's like, chasing their dream, at least the beginning of that is like, it's uncertain. I remember when I first started posting anything, it felt vulnerable just to put something out there.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, like, I have a family that I have to provide for, and I live in Oklahoma City, and food photography, I'll put it this way, I'm like, my mom's friends will be like, we'll be at like a little gathering where there are all these people, and they'll be like, so, you take photos of food? And, I mean, it's totally understandable, but it's also like yes, but I've had to work hard to get here, and I've had to work hard to make a decent living doing it, and yeah, so that first edible cover especially was like a huge milestone, because before then it just kind of felt like I was just wandering around, kind of trying to like carve out a path, but not totally.
Direction, trying to figure out.
Yeah, it was like kind of the next step had been revealed a little bit, and it also was like something to show for the time and money I'd spent already taking photos of food.
Yeah.
I think something, because I've been in situations where people are like, so you do what? Like you take pictures of houses. So I think I've when people ask me what I do, I've recently been just straight up, I'm just a photographer, because first of all, it cuts down on questions like that. Like, you take pictures of houses, why? That kind of thing. So maybe, I don't know, maybe in that situation, maybe you don't get to ask that question that much anymore. Maybe you just show me Instagram and be like, look.
Yeah.
That guy, it's always on the cover. Yeah, it's me.
Yeah.
I always have that.
Kennon is the cover boy.
He is.
I've only done one cover.
So, where were you? Did you get a phone call? Or was it a surprise? Did you see how did you first find out that you were going to be the cover?
I saw it.
So you didn't. So it wasn't
You saw it in the
like-
wild?
I saw it out in the wild. I think
They didn't
this
even
was
tell
like
you.
3 years ago. So I'm like, I want to say it was
That's even
I want to say
better.
that, or maybe somebody texted me.
Yeah. So it was.
But it was a
total
surprise. Yeah, it was a surprise. It felt really good.
That's real. And then that obviously started your relationship with Edible OKC, and I mean they go to, I guess, food magazine publication. Was that right?
I would say so.
Right, but
I mean, I don't think they're really rivaled by anybody else
Yeah.
as far as like publishing content about the food
Right.
scene. Yeah, and I also think that they have This is not meant to be like a bias statement, but I do think that they have the best food photography with their crew of photographers.
Yeah, I mean, this is, we're here to share your story, so you can say whatever you want.
Thank you.
No, but I agree. I think it's a lot of the photos that are on there, there's not a bad photo taken that's posted, right? Like, and they're very good on social media too.
Yeah, they are. And I do think what they did is, I think that a publication like Edible OKC has really raised the game for food photography among other publications, to where food content is no longer like you just go in and you take a photo of tacos and you write about how this new taco place is so good. It's like the photo is just as important now, I think, as the written content. So yeah.
Yeah, it's got to draw you in, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What else do you? I mean, everyone knows you as the food photographer, but what's like your passion? What else do you enjoy taking photos of?
Okay, so like I was saying, I really like taking photos of beautiful things, and it's taken me a little while to understand that it's not just food, because you get like a gig where the food comes out and it's like a bowl of gravy, and you're like, I don't really like photographing this, but I will.
Like, I love that bubble, right?
Yeah, and that's a made up scenario. But I've changed the language with the way that I describe Dwelling Table now as a hospitality media studio.
Okay.
So it would be not just food and drink, but it would also be interiors. I love interior photography. So like if you were on my website, there are some photos of like Bar Arbolada, a photo of plant, some things like this where I want to do more than just food. I really like to try and capture an experience as well.
Yeah. Is like drink photography equally as like hard?
It kind of
probably the wrong word,
depends.
but equally
Does that not roll into food?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely. I would say the way.
They should bowl of gravy.
Yeah, I love that photo. This is that's soup.
For everybody listening, I'm just scrolling down Brandon's portfolio on his website. You can go to it, dwellingtable.com.
You asked about drinks.
Yeah, I like, as a photographer, do you find, for you as doing this for 3 years, you find it, you know what you're doing, but for somebody listening that doesn't know what they're doing, is it kind of like similar settings and just similar basics, light, whatever, to capture drinks as it is to capture food?
Yeah, it's similar, but I do think that you approach your drinks differently than you approach food, because they photograph differently. Like, you would want your lighting to be a little bit different, the way that you get your highlights on the ice, or also sometimes the color of the drink. Just it sounds silly. You're really the first person to ask about how drinks are different
Generally interested in this.
Food, but yeah, it is a little bit different.
Because I mean, a lot of people who take pictures of food, that you quote food influencers that are in Oklahoma City, and we've got plenty of them. You see them, they bring their lights with them or whatever, and they got their phone on and they kind of do their thing. But when I try and take a picture of food, like I'm sat at the table, and it's more of like a kind of I want to be inconspicuous about it, because I'm kind of taking a photo to show it off to like what I'm eating to my friends or whatever.
Yeah. And
it's always that kind of like just generic at the table shot. But these obviously shots you're not sat at the table, right? You're in different positions and the food's placed differently, and I guess, does it just go with taking photos of food? Is it just kind of like taking photos of anything else? You just got to position it in a way that's most desirable, I guess?
Yeah, you're really wanting to put food's best foot forward.
Yeah.
So like here with this image of this grilled cheese, I mean, like, this is Cody, and he's with the Hungry Town Concepts guys, and he's at the Mule, and he's pulling this grilled cheese apart.
Yeah.
And like, the best foot forward for a grilled cheese is like that cheesy, stringy cheese. The cheese, the highlights on the cheese, because it's shiny and melty, and I catch myself wanting to say shine, and the technical term is highlights.
Okay.
Which I just like as a side note.
Yeah.
There was a story written about me in the Oklahoman, and the opening statement, which I loved the story. I thought it was really funny. It was by a guy named Josh Delaney, and it was great. I made the front cover, and it felt really good. His opening sentence was about like the unclothed subject sat there waiting to be photographed or something like that. And then there was this quote. Yeah, there was this quote, and it was like Brandon takes the photo and he says, "I love the shine on the beans." And like it's hilarious, but I'm also like, of all the things that I said during this interview, you had to run with "I love the shine on the beans." So now I
instantly degrades.
Now I credit myself as the founder of hashtag the shine on the beans.
Okay, I saw that.
But
Instagram bio. I was that was cool.
Yeah, I was like later talking to a photographer friend of mine who's been doing this way longer, and he was like, "Yeah, it's funny they didn't even say that, like the technical term, like they didn't even call it the highlight.
Well, that's because people
reading
it are like people
and
like
I'm
me that have
yeah,
no
I'm
idea
self-taught.
what
I
you're
say
talking
stuff
about.
like the shine.
Yeah. But so when like taking photos of food, talk like technical to me, right? Shallow depth of field, like
Not necessarily.
no?
Okay.
So, yeah.
So,
talk
a
about
couple of things like when people say like I love taking photos but I cannot get food, typically what I think they're probably talking about is like they can't get the composition right, and I bet the best way I can describe it is like food looks better if you can just come a little bit closer. So whenever I'm taking a photo of something, if it makes sense, like if it's a bowl, I try to come in pretty tight and photograph maybe 3/4 of the bowl. I think with food, people feel like you have to get the whole thing,
the entire plate,
the entire plate within the frame. But that's not always the case. I think you can come in really close. You want to see the detail of the food, and I mean it's not always the case. You could be doing a tablescape or something like that and be, distanced from the subject. But as far as like if you were going to take photos of, a plate of pancakes or some cookies or a burger or something like that, my biggest tip is to come in just a little bit closer, or take your image and play with the crop. So that you do get those details. I think whenever we try to put everything within the frame, it can feel really staged. So like having things that kind of transcend the frame, make it feel like it has this kind of sense of place. Like this image here of the pancakes on my portfolio. This is from Neighborhood Jam. And what I would want you to feel with the plates there kind of transcending the sides of the frame is that there's a bigger food scene here other than just,
Gotcha.
2 stacks of pancakes, or this image next to it with the shrimp and grits, that this is really on like a countertop or something.
Mm-hmm. Do you still follow like the kind of rule of thirds, leading lines, all the kind of camera basics
Yeah, I
as well?
absolutely do.
Okay.
And to be honest, I feel goofy talking about the rule of thirds. I think it's like a really foundational kind of way to approach composition that also sounds so simple, like that whenever I'm trying to explain it, I'm like, is this really real? It's like when somebody's after you've done it and kind of see like the impact that it makes on your images, it feels like telling somebody how to breathe.
Yeah, it's like going back to teaching, like, whatever it is, even if it's a sport, like so going to the basics and the foundations and starting again. But that's good though, because people listening are gonna be like, oh, it's that simple. Like it's not like this crazy settings and all that stuff. Like, you just go back to the basics and kind of you'll figure it out.
Honestly, I think that is kind of, sorry to cut you off, but I think
go
that
ahead.
I
You
think
do
that
have a microphone. You can chime in whenever you want.
yeah, he's like facing you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm like walling Kennon out
Just
over
like
here.
the
I don't
moon
mean
of-
to.
No, I do think that when it comes to like, because I get asked questions like that all the time, and I think that even outside of like you were talking about sports and stuff, I do really think that when it comes down to like being good at whatever it is you're doing, like literally, it really is just that simple. Like, I was listening to another podcast the other day, and I don't know if you've ever talked to me, you know how much I like Mike Kelly. He's like an architectural photographer. He's like probably one of the more well-known ones. He was talking about some of his most iconic photos are just straight out of camera. He didn't do anything to them. He just took the photo, and I think maybe there's a fact like there's a kind of a star factor to it. Like, oh, it's Mike Kelly. He took it, so that's why it's good. But also, I think that when you really strip back all this like like layer masking and Photoshop and all this other stuff, like if you know what you're doing as far as a basic thing goes, then
Yeah.
I think you're good. Because like I said, some of his most iconic photos are just straight out of camera shots, and you're like, holy cow, you know?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that was like literally, he took the picture, maybe did a few highlight adjustments in Lightroom and sent it out, and it's like, wow, he's so good. But he like, it was just
Yeah,
a simple
it's
photo.
kind of something that you can't teach in photography, isn't it? Like
Yeah.
photographers talk about having like the eye.
Mhm.
If you don't have the eye for it, and people starting out, like it's something that I'm sure is developed over time.
Definitely.
Naturally, some people have it as well, though, right? Like you can pick up a camera and you go, oh, I just kind of see it differently, and I move 1 foot to the right and I get this angle, or whatever it is.
I would like earlier whenever I was saying the thing about like a linear process. Photography, I think, is really not so linear as much as it is bringing together multiple concepts that help create an image. So even if you have a raw talent, I do think like learning the technical components of your camera and how to make it do what you want it to do. But like, you know, you're also understanding composition, and you're like developing your eye for that. You're also understanding lighting and what you can work with if you're focusing on natural light, or how you're going to bring in studio lights to light your image, and how you're going to do that setup. Yeah.
Is that, do you spend more time like setting up lights and everything than you do taking photos?
I favor using a studio light of some sort, or like a speed light or flash or whatever. Generally because natural light is so unpredictable, and you can't get away with it in every situation. Yeah, I do. And in fact, if you were to go to my portfolio, a lot of the work that I've done, I've used a studio light.
Yeah. And everything, like I said, it's kind of bright. You have to highlight everything, and I'm sure when you walked into that first shoot, like, this is a dungeon.
Yes. Yeah.
probably
Well, absolutely.
really-
I mean,
even,
it
the
had
bulbs, even the bulbs are yellow.
yeah, it had its own charm, but
Yeah.
like I should post something about the food photos I took there. They were fine, and you know, it's like that publication is like very documentary. Like what you see is what you get, as far as like the restaurant shoots go. So it all worked out, but yes, I will say to be able to go into a shoot and know that I have the equipment that I need, even if it's just in case, it's like a huge relief. Yeah. I did a series it's coming out in Oklahoma today, in like their upcoming issue, but it was a series on chef's tables. And if you've ever, I didn't even really know what a chef's table was, but it's like a VIP table, okay, in the kitchen. Or it can also be like a bar that's up by the kitchen. It's like a space for, it's really the space for like you to have this kind of more personal chef kind of dining experience. Anyway, the assignment was to not only shoot like the chef's table experience with, you know, guests there, but also shoot food.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, like, you know, we're in the middle of winter and it's dark by 5-ish p.m.
And people don't want to eat under a giant strobe light
Yes.
in front of them, or, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
lit
so-
up while they're eating.
Like if I was going in and I was going to try and shoot it all at once and shoot the food and get this, you know, beautiful editorial style shot of food among like a really natural setting with people who aren't models, they're just regular old people. Like, it would be very, very difficult.
Yeah.
So to be able to, you know, we ended up splitting it up. I went in and shot the food. I did use lighting, but then I went in and was able to have like a more documentary experience with the actual chef's table, where the people were like more candid and they could just be themselves.
They're not
and
on set and
Yeah.
trying to like worry about how they're lifting their fork and chewing
That was
and all
probably-
that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That was
Yes.
probably also good for them, because they probably, like you were saying, they probably didn't want to feel like
I
they had
hate
to
that.
like do things a certain way. You know,
Yeah.
like, okay, I can actually just experience this as I want. And then, so whenever you split it up, was that your suggestion or was that their suggestion? Or?
That was my suggestion.
Okay. I think, to be honest with you, I think that is kind of a skill in itself, is being able to like know what you're doing and like,
Yeah.
hey, I think this is going to be better.
Yes.
Because like there's so many times, like, you know, just being in real estate photography, like there's like so many things that are like out of your control that you kind of just have to do it. But just like being able to like be in a position where you can be like, hey, this is what I think,
Yes.
as a professional here.
Yeah.
And then just having your client trust you like that, I think that's a really big thing.
I completely agree with that. I mean, I think it's taken longer for me to feel comfortable being assertive, but you can only do things poorly so many times until you think like, this is not going to work, and I've done this, however many times, and it's never really worked the way I thought it was going to.
Right.
And as a photographer, like at the end of the day, who's going to get blamed for a bad photo? Not the restaurant, not the guests, not the chef. It's going to be the photographer. And so, I have goals for where I want to go with my business, and part of what I have to do to get there is protect my work and make sure that I'm producing good work.
Right.
Also, though, like, I like having a happy client. Like, at the end of the day, I want my client to feel like, man, it was great working with Brandon. Not only did he produce, some really great images, he was easy to work with. He was intelligent about the subject matter. And he helped kind of protect our investment in the shoot. But yeah, definitely, I don't think there's enough said about being assertive as a photographer. I think, especially here in the Midwest, where I don't think photography is quite as seasoned as like where you would see on the coasts or in other major cities. I think there's a level of art direction that you have to bring to the table to like ensure that you're going to be delivering a quality product, whereas I think in other locations you would maybe be working maybe a little bit more as a team with somebody else who's going to be providing art direction. Does that make any sense? Is that like clear?
That makes total sense.
I think, there were probably definitely times, in the past where you were in a situation like that where in your mind you were probably like, it's probably best to split this up, but like you probably didn't feel like you could say anything, or you maybe were not in the position.
Or maybe less assertive. You have self-confidence to do it, right?
Yeah, it's the self-confidence
So,
thing.
just being in a place where you're like, you know what, this is what I think, and I don't know, I just think that's.
Well, I think all three of us probably like we're not like super confrontational people, right? We're kind of just like, if that's how you want to do it, okay, it's fine. Like, it's not like you'd be like, I'm sure it takes a lot to develop that. I'm the professional here. This is how this needs to be done. And I'm sure, like, and sometimes I feel like a real dick doing that. But like, you have to do that to ensure that the quality of the work maintains the expectation.
I think, it's like the combination of self-confidence and the confidence in your work, but also the language. Like, I don't think I've ever gone in and been like, I'm the professional, you're the subordinate, you've just paid me to do this. Like, and I don't really believe it like
this
that.
This food looks like trash right now, let's go recook this right now.
It's like learning the language language or techniques for how, like, if you have some kind of discrepancy between what the client wants and what you're actually able to provide, having tools to kind of bridge that gap. A lot of times, I'll shoot tethered if there is somebody there who's going to be, kind of monitoring the images and making sure we're getting what we want. And just having the images be able to display on a screen separate from my camera where they can view it, it's so much easier for them to say like, yes, this is working, or no, it's not. I think also having a technical understanding of composition and a way to describe why in an image the composition works or it doesn't work is like a great way to I don't know, a great way to bridge that gap between what the client wants and then what is actually happening.
You mentioned like goals, so elaborate on that for me a little bit. Is it kind of just bigger, better, travel, or like?
I love traveling, actually.
So
I really
travel to shoot restaurants, stuff like that.
Yeah, one of the things I love about being a photographer is the if you were able to get booked, you have these opportunities to meet people and get behind the scenes in ways that I don't think anybody else really gets to. And like for this Chef's Table series with Oklahoma Today, I got to travel to 4 or 5 restaurants here in Oklahoma City and 2 restaurants in Tulsa, and get to meet people and see behind the scenes, and it was so fun. I mean, it was really so fun. So I love that. I love getting to meet people. I more recently, in the last few years, I really like working on a set. It's very, very enjoyable. I think one person that I like would love to credit as like helping me see that. There's a woman here in Oklahoma City named Britta Newton-Tarrant, and she's like a
Almost as
fantastic.
many names as
Yeah,
Kennon.
she's like a really, really good stylist who's worked with big names, and I've gotten to shoot with her a couple of times, and I really that has given me some visibility for like what it actually looks like to work on a set, to work with an art director, to do something more than just show up with my camera.
Yeah.
I love it.
Is it just because it's more structured, more like professional settings, more structured? It's kind of rise to the occasion.
It is. It's a little bit more intentional.
Yeah.
I should say it's a lot more intentional, but also I love editorial style work. So, like things that feel maybe a little bit more natural, or it's like, you know, it's not just beautiful food. It's also in a beautiful setting. It's got beautiful plates, beautiful glassware,
Yeah.
all of that kind of stuff. Beautiful linens, and
I guess trying to
I think-
capture the whole scene and
Yeah.
the feel of that in photography is that's the aim of the game, right?
I think
Especially kind of what Kennon does with architecture
sorry.
stuff too.
kind of blocking you out again. Sorry, Ken.
I think that kind of what you're saying, as opposed were you saying that the editorial stuff and like being on set are different? You're saying
No, I
Okay.
think they're very similar.
Okay.
Well, I mean, not every time you're on a set is that. I mean, I've been on a set and we've shot strictly menu photography, and that's fine.
Okay,
and
I
I
see-
can
okay.
certainly do
I see
that.
what
But
you-
I think it's like I love the editorial style, but I also like the kind of intention that is put into photography on set, and like the way you adjust for perfect lighting and for this perfect
Gotcha.
setting, and it's not so run and gun, just show up with a camera and do the best that you can with what you've got.
So what I was gonna say is I think, and I don't know, maybe I can't speak for all photographers, but I think one of the things that I dislike hearing the most is, I don't know, you're the photographer, you're the artist.
Figure it out.
You're the artist, you know? And so being on set with, there's a team there, being intentional about this and that, and like,
Yeah.
basically, because I do think there's, I do enjoy like having my creative freedom when it comes to things.
The worst though is whenever you're shooting something that's very uninspired, and the client is
Yes.
like, you tell me, you're the photographer, and in your head what you want to say is like, well, I would have never decided to shoot this in the first place.
That's
So
what
how
I'm
do you
talking.
come across that?
That's
How
what-
do you tackle that?
What do you mean? Like, how do you?
Yeah, like
For me,
for both of you, yeah.
for me, on like at a shoot that I think is uninspired, the best thing I can do is provide a technical service. So if it was food I wouldn't have picked, or a setting I wouldn't have picked, or just imagine maybe it's just all very bare and plain.
Right.
The best thing I can do is use like a technical understanding about how my lines are interacting with each other, or like great composition to help this food put its
Okay.
best foot forward. But I think that's what having a really strong technical know-how gives you, is a means to kind of navigate those and just say like, even though I wouldn't have picked this, which you don't say that, even though I wouldn't have picked this, I did help you get the best possible photos you could
Gotcha.
get with this.
I think when if you're starting out and you want to be like a photographer, I think first of all you do have to cast a wide net and just kind of get whatever you
Yeah.
can get, and that's how you kind of get that technical know-how. And over time you can kind of start to like, I don't really like. I know that shooting this for this specific client, or maybe this specific genre, like I know that I'm not into that, and it does kind of give me that
Yeah.
weird feeling. But I think that like he said, like over time you'll develop these skills, and you'll know whenever you do find yourself in a situation where you're like uninspired, you can just, because like shooting real estate, like I shoot $50,000 houses and multi-million-dollar houses and everything in between, and so some of these smaller, like an $80,000 flip and more is very uninspiring. But knowing how to do what I do, I can just get it done. I can
Right.
do it, and then so whenever I am in these like really nice, maybe not even multi-million-dollar houses, but nice houses that like are more my aesthetic or more something I'm into, like then I can kind of like let my creative juices flow. But when I'm doing these, small houses, then
Yeah.
I know how to do it, so I just do it. And GTFO.
Yeah. I mean, it's understandable.
Maybe
Makes
that's
sense.
kind of what you're saying,
Yeah.
ish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just-
it's like you go into a home, and the best thing you can do is like adjust the lighting,
Right.
make sure the fan is turned off, like these kinds of simple things.
Yeah.
But I've been really okay. So here's like a little kind of caveat type of thing. So I bought a subscription to Masterclass, which I'm curious if maybe you all get those ads on Facebook.
Oh yeah.
Okay, but like they're one of the teachers, which if you have the opportunity to do this, I do think it's great, because the teachers for this online school or whatever, they're all industry leaders. Okay, so Annie Leibovitz, she's like a huge photographer.
Super iconic.
Super.
You know, real quick.
Lots of celebrities.
There are so many.
Portrait.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like she shot a lot of like movie covers. Like there's so many photos that I have just recently realized that they're like super iconic photos. They're super iconic like movie posters and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
She's the one that took them because
Okay.
she's been like what 30, 40 years. She's a
Long time.
Yeah, like there's so many photos that I'm like I had no idea that was her. She's like super like
Yeah.
So anyways,
So this master, how much is it, like a monthly subscription, and you just have
I
classes?
bought it for a year.
Okay.
They had like a 2-for-1 kind of deal, and a
Yeah.
buddy and I split it. But I was really inspired by her class because it was so much more about, and I also think that I was maybe at a little bit of a crossroads. But her class was so much on like, I don't know. It wasn't on like everything requires all this expensive equipment. It was on like capturing something emotive from your subject, and it not necessarily having to be like this huge relying on technical for it. And I don't know how to describe it, because on one hand she's shooting these really superb kind of like celebrity shoots, but they're like, I don't know how to describe it, they're kind of subdued. There's something very natural feeling about them, even though they're like
She's just good at what she
extremely
has,
editorial. Yeah. But she's really inspired me to be a better photographer, and really kind of fight for like, when I'm photographing something, what is it that is going to bring life to this, that tells a story. Which I think in 2020 we're kind of tired of like hearing the word story and storytelling and blah blah blah. But when I teach workshops or classes, I always ask, what is it that makes a good food photo? And to me, the thing that makes a good food photo is that it's engaging, that it is telling a story about the food, even if it's, it doesn't have to be this huge, long spiel. I just think there's something that is kind of captivating about it, that draws you in, that makes you want to learn more about whatever the subject is.
I think that kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier about just knowing, like, knowing that, like, basically the basic, like the rule of thirds, like that's kind of that. I think being able to do that and being able to do it really well kind of is in that same plane of field as like the rule of thirds, or like just understanding the basics of whatever it is that you're doing. Because if you can't, first of all, if you can't do that, you evoke something from somebody, you're probably not going to be that successful. And I kind of what you were saying is Al, she kind of does this very stripped back approach of like, going back to Mike Kelly again, something he talked about in that same podcast I was listening to is, over time his like gear setup that he takes on with him has dwindled massively. Like he used to take like multiple Pelican cases of stuff, and now he like just travels with his camera, tripod, one light, and a couple of like scrims or whatever. I don't know if people know what scrims are, but just something to block
It's like
light.
a diffuser.
Yeah. So, and just over time, like getting, understanding that like you don't need all these big, crazy things to, if you're good, if you know the basics and you know what you're doing, then
To go in a completely different direction, when you see like videos of people like kind of videos or photos of or whatever it is of people taking like behind the scenes shoots, right? Behind the scenes videos of shoots, and I'm going to use like fast food chains for this, which I don't think you've done any fast food chains, right?
Kind of.
Okay,
but
so
go ahead.
what I want to ask is like, they do a lot to the food to make it shine and look like, see, I just used shine.
Sure.
To make it, you know what I mean? Like they spray it with stuff, and it's like, what I'm saying is like when you see a picture of like I'm going to use McDonald's for an example. McDonald's, when you get it, that's not what it looks like, right?
Okay.
So like obviously you've got
it's
to
a
like
staged photo.
yes. So but is there, and you don't have to name names, but has there been experiences where do you have to do that to make things pop and shine, or is it just more, it's easier to do in editing and they're just doing that because the food's crap, and it's like,
I have
does that
not
make sense?
been. Yeah, I haven't been on a. I will say I haven't been on a set that's been quite so like intense as
adding
far
makeup to
as
the food, basically,
yeah,
is what I'm trying to
as
say.
far as that. I mean, definitely there are things that I would do for a shoot that would like help, and it could be something as little as like brushing oil on something that needs to shine a little bit more, or like produce.
Yeah.
If it's like supposed to be fresh produce, sometimes like spritzing it with a little bit of water
Okay.
can help, if it makes sense
Yeah,
for the scene.
but my
But
point
as
is
far
that
as
you can
like
still actually eat that food. It's not like, oh, I've just sprayed it with all this crap to make it look good.
Yeah.
It's now going in the trash.
I did work on a set where they used what was it? It was like to take the place of ice cream.
Okay.
Which that's like the number one question people ask is like, do you use mashed potatoes for ice cream?
It's really, I didn't know
But
that.
actually,
Is that like an industry secret?
I guess I haven't ever used it, but I also don't photograph a lot of ice cream.
Yeah.
Because if you're working with ice cream, you gotta work fast.
Yeah,
So, very
it's really
fast.
hard to photograph ice cream. Honestly.
Is it really?
Yeah, it is. But because you're trying to get like that perfect scoop, you know what I'm saying? You're trying to get like an ice cream ball.
Yeah.
Okay, but then you need to get it all set up and prepared, and then shoot it before it melts.
Shooting like your sports photography, the shutter speed's going crazy.
I actually have had some shoots though where I'm like clicking through the images and you can see, like you can literally see like
see
the
it
ice
melting.
cream melting. Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. I like that. That's fun.
But
yeah.
yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Because you see
But
videos on YouTube, whatever, and they're like, this is what we've done to make this double cheeseburger look this
I do
good.
think that like I have a lot of respect for that, because that is a true skill and an art to be able to take a burger like that, which you're
It's
going to unwrap
uninspiring.
it and it's going to be like
Yeah.
kind of dumpy, but you're only eating it because it's convenient and it tastes great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think it's an art. I have a lot of respect for like big food stylists, because it just takes a lot of effort and energy and know-how to take something like that and really make it extremely commercial.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. I guess we can finish on. I know we've been chopping it up for a bit, and before we started recording, there was a picture of a cheeseburger on that you were really happy and really proud of. What's your favorite
I mean,
burger?
it was.
Kennon was picking at it. I guess what would be your go-to favorite place to eat burgers in town?
Oh, man. Okay, so
Putting
this
you
is
on
kind
the
of.
spot
I'm going to
right
tell you
now.
this is kind of sad. So first off, my favorite food is a bacon cheeseburger
Yeah.
and French fries. Okay, like I will default to that.
Mhm.
I like got very fat eating those whenever my kids were born, and this isn't a bacon cheeseburger, but I do think that the Pritchard
Okay.
in the plaza, which they're going to be like no more. They're rebranding.
Yeah.
They're going to be Lua, and I have no idea if their bistro burger is going to make the cut for the next menu or not.
I really hope they do, because that thing is
I
so good.
Love
Oh my
that
gosh.
burger. It
Okay.
is so good.
That is
Hands
so
down,
good.
my
Yeah.
So they're-
favorite.
So you can still go get it?
I mean, I think that they are closing on like the 16th or something.
Okay, because I remember we had a conversation with somebody a couple weeks ago, and they were like, it's on its way out. And we were
Yeah,
like, oh no.
I
There's a
know.
few places that are doing that though, right? I think Republic and Chisholm Creek are on have they like shut that one down now?
They just opened in Chisholm Creek.
Yeah.
They literally like
I
turn the
don't
lights
know.
on and like, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I also have to say,
I don't know if that's true. That's what I've heard, so don't quote me on that.
I love Tucker's.
Yes.
Okay.
Ooh.
Tucker's is amazing. The secret at Tucker's is to get the kids meal, because it's just the right proportion. It comes with fries. You can easily add bacon to it, and it's like still very cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't. Top tip, exclusive
I
to the
know.
podcast. That's great.
So you're-
great consumer advice right there.
So you're saying the Pritchard burger is your that's
Yeah,
okay,
the Pritchard
okay.
burger is great. I love Johnny's. I
Yeah, I
could
do.
just
I like
go on and
Johnny's.
on. I love
Johnny's
Johnny's.
put too much cheese on it though.
You think
for me.
so?
It's just like
It's
yeah.
that-
It's,
I like-
I don't like the cheese they put on it.
That feta sauce,
It's not cheese.
or feta, whatever you call it.
Feta,
It's
yeah.
good. I
Yeah,
really
feta.
like that.
What about Irma's?
Irma's.
Irma's is like kind of understated.
I haven't been to Irma's in a really long time.
Well, it's been a long
I'm
time
sure it's
since I've
great.
been there, but
I'm sure it's great. I should just say we have 2 kids under 2, and we
It's
eat
no excuse.
Chipotle. I'm like, people will be like, tell me about the local food scene,
Yeah.
and I'm like, we
You're
don't
like,
get out.
you don't get out.
Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A
Yeah.
is
Oh, okay,
like
so-
amazing.
Yeah.
Since we're talking about burgers, I will say I don't know if Hot Dottie is like a. I don't know if
Oh,
is it local or
okay,
is
we
No,
do
it's
need to
not,
talk
but-
about
but I
Hot
do-
Dottie is
yeah.
amazing.
is
Hot
it
Dottie
local?
Dottie is really
You
good.
say it's not local?
It's Austin based, I think.
Okay.
Also,
I mean, there's two in town now.
Patty Wagon.
Ooh, haven't had
Patty
that
Wagon?
yet.
Patty
so-
Wagon
okay, he
does
took me to
not get the recognition it deserves.
He took me to Patty Wagon for the first time, and bro,
Yeah.
it's good.
Yeah, it's
But
really
okay,
good.
so real quick, back to Hot Dottie. They have this burger. I think it's called the breakfast burger. I'm not sure, but I went there with my brother the other day, and he was like, "Hey, you got to get the breakfast burger." And I was like, "Okay." So I looked at the menu. It's hamburger meat, sausage, like pork sausage, and like ham is the patty. Like it's all in one.
That's amazing.
I ate it, and I was like, you could taste the pork
Does it have
sausage.
like a fried egg on top as well?
Yeah, it's like what you would expect out of a
Yeah.
breakfast burger. But dude, I think the patty took it over the top because it was like I said, it was hamburger, pork sausage, and ham in the
Yeah,
patty.
yeah.
Like it was all that was the patty, and you could taste the sausage. And I don't know, it was so good, dude.
So I'll have to have that one next time too.
You should go try that. But
Yeah.
but he said patty wagon. That's also like
Okay.
It's very
upper
good.
shelf.
Okay, all right, and then also Loklahoma in the collective,
Okay.
amazing chef, amazing burgers, and like these very very good fries.
Yeah. To that point, is there anybody like that really outside of, you said Paddy Wagons doesn't get the recognition it deserves. Is there anyone that's like up and coming that like you've kind of heard about through the grapevine and you may be shooting them soon, or do people that have just been around for a while that just like are very understated and people need to go see these local people more rather than going to like Johnny's or Five Guys or whatever?
I wish I knew. Yeah, I wish I knew.
Yeah.
I don't know a lot about the local food
Right.
scene as far as like who's up and coming or anything like that.
But
I know that's so lame. I'm
no, it's
sorry.
not. No, I'm trying to give some consumer advice to the people listening. Like, oh, we haven't been here yet. Let's go there. But Paddy Wagon was good, and local home was. I mean, you answered the question I asked. So you should have asked it
I will say
before you said that.
if you know what does anybody know what a hot hamburger is?
No.
Okay, so hot hamburger. I think I'm from Bartlesville, Oklahoma, and there's like a restaurant there that serves a hot. It's called Murphy's. They serve a hot hamburger. It's basically like bread, meat. If you want cheese. Fries are on top of that, and then gravy over the top of everything.
Ooh, okay.
And that's the only place I've ever seen that had it. But there's I think we said it, New State, in the plaza.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
They have good burgers too.
They have a hot hamburger.
Okay.
That's really good, and that's the only place that I've seen.
So Ron's does that.
Oh, they do?
Ron's,
Okay.
But Ron does it with chili. They put chili over the
Oh
top.
yeah, so I
And
mean,
the
I don't
burger is,
know
like,
what
massive.
that is, but the
Yeah.
gravy over the top, brown gravy over the top
Yeah.
with the fries, like, I don't know. If you're into hot hamburgers or
That
if you
sounds
don't know what it
awesome.
is and you want to try it, New State in the plaza. Can't see it, but I'm doing the rock
Yeah,
on.
we can watch it. Ron
Oh,
video.
yeah.
Yeah.
It is so good. If you're
Yeah.
into that kind of stuff.
Awesome. Well, I think this has been very valuable. Thanks for taking the time out, gents.
Thanks for
Appreciate
having
it.
me.
Totes.
Time to plug yourself. Shout your handles out. How can they? I mean, can anyone hire you, even if they're not like a restaurant?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. The best way to get in contact with me is through my website, dwellingtable.com, using the contact form there. Or feel free to reach out to me on Instagram at dwellingtable via a DM.
Cool. Kennon?
My handle is Turk, TURK. My website's currently under construction, which I think that's like everybody always says that, but it literally, like somebody is literally working on it, as we speak maybe. But the website's tkrb.co. If you go there, there's not really much going on, but like I said, it's under construction. But
And if people want to see what you do, go to your Instagram.
yeah, if you,
Architectural
that's the best.
photography.
That's
Yeah.
the best way is my Instagram. That's where you're gonna see like work and what I'm doing and all that kind of stuff. So
Great, awesome. Well, again, appreciate your time. Everyone listening and watching on Facebook and YouTube, thanks for checking in. Follow us at This Is Oklahoma, and if you want to be on our weekly email list, sign up. There's a sign up tab on our Facebook page. And we'll catch you next episode. Cheers.
Bye.
Sick.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Did I give you the info you wanted?
Yeah.
Did you want more technical understanding? If you want,
No, like it's more.
we could do something sometime that's like we actually shoot some